thanks for doing this, first of all. I really appreciate you taking the time out. I imagine you're a pretty busy guy. You seem to have, there seems to be just an awful lot of stuff going on. We'll get to that later on. I always start off talking about coffee first. So seeing as you work with Josh, we obviously have to talk about Good Dudes.
Oh, yeah.
Like I've had the pleasure, and it was a pleasure. Where did that originate? Was that like a startup, or was that like something that Josh had his eye on, or was it something that was like started with a view to maybe him coming on board?
Yeah. So, with Josh's brand, right? Like the goal with him is to, turn on as many different kind of revenue streams as possible. And with that is, you launch a brand for the athlete and then you help them run it. Josh is a huge coffee snob, like to the point where I feel like he was going to beat me once because I sent him to the wrong shop. It just wasn't good enough. No, he's an awesome dude, but so yeah, they tried launching Good Dudes a while back, and then it fell through kind of right before it was able to go to market. And so that was one of my first goals when I kind of took over Josh's brand, was to launch that company with him to so that he could have something to really kind of focus on and spearhead. And so yeah, we brought in kind of this tight knit little team, and yeah, we're on our weekly conference call, and every day we're in the group thread working on things and doing stuff for that, and it's just unbelievable. It's been pretty cool to see Josh, kind of take on that entrepreneurial role and lead the charge there, and really put in a lot of time and effort into that, and help grow Good Dudes to where it is today and where it's going to go. So we got some
With
big plans for it.
with the growth of that, then is that like, because it's, I suppose, maybe the an industry you haven't been involved in before, of like, the coffee industry is kind of, I suppose, a little bit niche, maybe, especially like, high quality coffee tends to be a bit niche. So like, has the growth of the company or of the brand, has that like surprised you or frustrated you, or has it been easier or more difficult than you thought, like before you started?
I mean, I'd say the growth has been steady, so it's been maintainable. But I mean, yeah, I used to, so like back when I was in college, I used to work in a coffee shop that was like, as part of a company that, is like kind of award winning back in my home area, back in New England. Um, and so I became very interested in coffee then and kind of a snob about it. And so it lent itself to what it is we were trying to do, because we weren't trying to just be like like kind of like a flagship company that's hitting a niche market, but is all about margin and money,
Mm.
and sacrificing quality for that. Like quality is very important to us, and sometimes we sacrifice one day of shipping to be able to send people the most recently roasted beans, right? Because we're not gonna sacrifice kind of who we are and what our mission is, which is to get good coffee to good people, dudes or dudettes, right? Whatever you want to call them. And so yeah, we partnered up with a roastery that is out of New England, and one of our guys has got his hand on, and works very closely with them. Like lives within 10 minutes of the roastery, so he's able to get in there, and get the coffee to the consumer as fast as possible without sacrificing quality. So it's been super super important for us, to maintain that even through the growth phase.
Yeah, I suppose it's handy having a constant supply of coffee for yourself as well. It's one of the perks.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt, man, but to be fair, it definitely affects my sleep occasionally. It's just so good that I want to drink it at like 4 or 5 o'clock, and it's just not a good decision.
Yeah. Something I love here about it is coffee memories from guests. So like, I'm assuming you have, if you used to work in a coffee shop and now you're, part of a team involved in running a coffee company, I'm assuming there's a flood coming into your mind. But I suppose, is there like maybe a place you were, a person you were with, or something that stands out of like, maybe coffee was somewhere on the periphery and not necessarily the center of it?
In terms of like a good story around coffee.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This might come across poorly, but like I used to make Bill Cosby his cappuccino because he was in the area and he sent his drivers in. Uh, so that's not exactly like that cool, but it's just
It
something.
would have been about 15 years ago. That would have been like, whoa, that's cool.
Yeah, it would have been great a while ago, but now kind of, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, man, coffee, like all just the entire aspect of it. You know, the way that people take it to heart, the way that they love it, like they do a good IPA, right, or a solid beer, and just the community around it. Like it's always kind of fun, man, when you're sitting there with Josh and he's making you a pour over or something because he's so passionate about it. It's not like he doesn't care about the fact that there's like six people in his kitchen. He has to make them all like their individual cup of coffee. He's so into it and he wants you to have the experience with him that it's fun to kind of look around occasionally and be like, yeah, we're doing this and we're doing it together. And
Yeah.
he's such a personality. It's sometimes you got to take a step back and just kind of look at what I've kind of worked myself into and appreciate it. And I think that's the thing that comes to mind the most.
Yeah, that's cool. With podcast then, so the lab management podcast started last summer, and I was curious, like, why did you choose podcasting? Because obviously, with the athletes on your roster, like videos is the obvious, thing. It's the obvious thing that comes to mind. So I was curious, what was it about podcasts that struck your interest?
I mean, to be fair, I was just in quarantine and I had time to kill. So I figured I'd talk to some of my athletes and record some of them. And we were using a different platform than Zoom just because the quality wasn't coming through on audio. But yeah, I mean, it was short lived. And I kind of just got really busy again and stopped podcasting as much. But there was 4 or 5 episodes. Maybe it'll come back at some point, right? But I mean, I'm more focused on the other podcasts that we're helping kind of get off the ground. So Josh's podcast, like his own individual podcast, and potentially like a baseball player that we work with. So yeah, I put myself in the back seat again and focus back in on the athletes.
When you see, so when Josh is doing his own podcast and you see him, like the Savan, Josh, and Matt one taking off so well, is that kind of like, oh, what are you doing? Like, stop doing other stuff and start
Uh,
doing.
no, no, no. I mean, I do look. I'm for anything that builds Josh's brand, right? Because
He
that's the
clearly
end.
enjoys doing that one as well, in fairness.
He loves it. He loves it. And you know, um, I've spoken with like Savan at length now, just around the podcast and a little bit before. And he's a brilliant mind. He's hilarious. Um,
It's
yeah,
funny when you say I've spoken to him at length, I imagine every conversation with him is an at length conversation somehow.
I mean, yeah, he's definitely he's like an encyclopedia, man. He's got a lot of knowledge, a lot of opinions, a lot of thoughts, but it's super fun to talk to. And then like, I've been around Matt enough to know that like what you saw as Matt as a competitor versus who he is in real life. Um, like dude is super super smart and very easy to converse with, and he's funny. And so it's really really awesome to watch Josh come to the table with those two, and all three of them being like so strong minded and opinionated and funny in their own right and accomplished in their own right, and like for all of them to hang with one another and kind of elevate their game because of it is has been really fun. And I mean, dude, it's hilarious. Like the story about Savan in the van with the kids, like I was literally crying. Like I had to call Josh, like crying, laughing because it was the funniest thing I've like ever heard.
Yeah, I was doing Chad last weekend, and I was just coming towards the end. I listened to 2 episodes in a row, and I was just coming towards the end of Chad, and I done fine the whole way through. Like obviously I was tired or whatever, but I had no near misses at all with the box. And then Savan he started a story by saying, I don't know how I'm going to get to the bottom of this or how I'm going to stop them doing it, but my kids are at the age where they can rest their cock and balls in the toilet seat. And it was the first time I almost missed the box step because of it. Just like, yeah, some of the stuff that comes out is just, it's gas. Like it is funny. How do you find, how did you find presenting then? Like being a host?
I mean, it's I think it's something where I was probably a little bit more conscious of what was coming out of my mouth just because you're starting to record. It's
Mm,
it's funny how that like dynamic changes. But I think I'm a pretty personable person, right? Like I'm used to leading conversations, especially when talking with companies or
mm,
prospective athletes or business meetings, things like that. So I used to teach in a past life as well. I taught taught 8th grade math. So
Oh,
I kind of know how I want things to go when I'm leading them. But at the same time, like the goal as a host, right, is to get the person going and let them, show off who they are. So
yeah.
I try to do that. Try to shut my mouth a little bit more and let the athletes do the talking.
Yeah, I was thinking earlier on, you could do like a series about barrel makers, and you could call it Cooper's Coopers. Just that popped into my head earlier on when I was looking you up. I was reading the lab website. You mentioned it there that you had a background in education. Like how did this happen where you're teaching and then you end up in athlete management? Like it's a strange, it's not a very well worn path, I'd say.
No, I wouldn't say. Do you want the long-winded or the short-winded answer?
Oh, take as long as you want. I've all night.
All right. So I I went to college, went to junior college, right, for 2 years. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. I played soccer there, football for you, right? So played soccer there for 2 years and still unsure of what I wanted to do. So just went to the state school, UMass Amherst. And while I was going there and I was trying to save money, right, by going to JUCO and then a state school, uh, I realized I'd probably be able to bump up my resume per se if I studied abroad at a good school. Um, and man, when I transferred from Holyoke Community College to UMass, my GPA reset, right? So I went back up to a 4.0 for no doing of my own. But I was like, I should capitalize on this. So I applied to study abroad at Oxford, and so I studied abroad there for a semester just because the GPA allowed me to do so. And I was completely in over my head. Um, well, whatever, I made it work. And while I was over there, I had gotten my L1 right beforehand. So I was coaching at a CrossFit gym to be able to afford to be able to train there. And I was playing lacrosse for the university, soccer and rugby. I was getting really beat up and sore. And so then I met the guy who's the European distributor for X Endurance. His name's Jim Peskett. He's a wicked good dude. And I met him. He introduced me to extreme endurance. I tried the product. I really liked it. It made me feel less sore. So I was like, all right, that's kind of cool. So I got home and I emailed X Endurance. Was like, hey, I want to work in the CrossFit space. Like, do you have any jobs available? And they were like, no, not at this time. We're not exactly big enough to need a East Coast rep yet, right? Because they're based in the West. I was like, all right, that's fine, that's cool. So I applied for Teach for America, and I got into that, and I was teaching my first year of 8th grade math, and they came back around and asked me if I wanted to be the rep, and I was like, I can't. Like I talked to my mom about it, and she was like, look, you make a commitment, you stand to it. You committed for 2 years to these kids, and I was like, you're right. So I did that. So I finished up my Teach for America commitment. Got my master's in education while doing it, just because it was essentially free. So why not? And then I started working for X Endurance full time, and that's how I met Jason. And I saw what Jason was doing with Josh, and some of the other top CrossFit athletes at the time, and the fact that he was a baseball agent as well. So outside of the CrossFit space into more traditional sports. And I was like, that's what I want to do. Like that's what intrigues me. I feel like that's my skill set. Um, you know, can you teach me anything and everything? And Jason was he was the first agent in the space back in 2013, I believe, when he took on Camille and Josh. And so the dude had been in the game for a while, and he had kind of realized that these athletes needed representation, and um, so he took me under his wing, and I started working with him. And my first athlete of my own under the lab umbrella was a monster truck driver, believe it or not, Cynthia Gautier, who's absolutely wild, and she's still on the team. And then it kind of went into CrossFit Games athletes. My first CrossFit athlete was Bethany Shadburn, and then it just grew from there. And eventually, I took lab full time, and started to kind of do a ton of brand building with Josh and branch outside of CrossFit as well. And we've got a lot of different things going on now. So it's just been this like wild path that it's pretty cool to look back on, because when you're in it, you don't really know what's going to come, and then you just kind of keep forging ahead and put your head down. And you know, I think good things happen to those that work hard and surround themselves with good people. And I feel like I've always had really good people around me, and I'm super fortunate for that. And I've tried to work hard and learn from my mistakes, because there's been plenty of them. And yeah, here I am.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like when when you said that, oh, I was teaching for in my first year and they came back. I thought you were going to say like later losers, I'm out and like walk out. So fair play, because it's obviously a risk to if you ask for something and then it comes back to turn it down out of loyalty. But yeah, it's an admirable trait to have. Um, so when you're establishing a company, I suppose like you have, Josh and Camille that are there, and like, are you kind of reliant then, say, you coming in, are you reliant on like people taking a punt on the company or people taking a punt on you, or do you go in and say like, well, we've got Josh and we've done this with him, etc.? Or like, how does it work when you're like, say, do you spot someone at an event and think, I want to work with that person and approach them? Or is it like, has it now turned into people coming to lab and saying, we need help?
Yeah, so at first, it's definitely more like spotting people at an event and being like, "Hey, I want to work with you. I think you have potential." And there's a few different things, right? Like obviously they need to be a great athlete because they need to hold up their end of the deal in terms of like producing results on the floor. But they also need to be able to be, kind of they need to have the personality that a brand can be built around them, right? Like they themselves as an athlete is a brand, right?
Mm.
Like clearly Josh has a personality like unlike any other, right? And that's why people love Josh because he's ruthlessly himself. Um, Same thing with Amanda Barnhart. She's awesome. She's super educated, knowledgeable. Like she is a brand in herself, and people love to learn from her and follow her lead. So you kind of look for those that like two-headed beast, right? Great athlete, great person, but also they are like they have a budding brand. But now, yeah, a lot people have come to me as well, which is pretty cool. It's honestly an honor. It never gets old. It's always pretty special when somebody has heard good things from another athlete and they come to you, right? But even some of the brands we've worked with have plugged me in with some of the athletes that I now represent because they figured I'd be a good fit and they knew that that athlete was unrepresented. And so that's very special too, and I'm super thankful for that.
Is it always unrepresented people? Like, I was curious, is there ever like, oh, I could do better for that person, or that person would do better if they worked with me than whoever they're working with? Like, is that like par for the course that, sometimes someone might lose out, or do you kind of stay away if someone's represented?
For the most part, I try to give people their space, right? And like just respect what it is that they're doing. And I say for the most part because I'm more so in traditional sports. Uh, agent work is a lot more cutthroat, right? Like that's why baseball agents are very very protective of their clients because you're talking about major money here, right? Like if some dude like Jason knows a dude, right, who lost a client and that client went on the next summer to sign $100 million deal, right? And so that client, that by losing that client, that agent lost, a couple $1 million in their pocket. And it's cutthroat, man. Like that's just how it works. So in terms of leaving people be in the traditional sports space, I do that, but I will approach athletes that have agencies to do marketing work and off field deals, right? Because that's where I kind of feel like I shine. I'm not, negotiating clubhouse deals, so it's okay to have two agents kind of involved there. And I do some work with Scott Stallings, he's a PGA golfer, but his agent is James from Spire Sports, and James and I have kind of partnered up, and it's been incredible. Like it's one of the coolest parts of my job. But in terms of CrossFit, somebody's represented. I usually am not going to say anything. If they happen to part ways and then we work with them, then that's cool, right? But the same thing could go our way. Maybe they find a better fit elsewhere, and they go a different direction. So yeah, I try to be as respectful as possible in the CrossFit world. It's a small world, man. But high tides rise all ships. So you gotta help one another.
Yeah, it's funny you thought of high tides rise all ships. I thought of don't shit on your doorstep. Was the first thing that came into my mind if you don't want to piss off the neighbors. Like management itself and like agency is just like it's fascinating to me. Like so, I suppose like the relationships that you have to build up, and then like there's the communication, like how important all of that is, and then the decision making and the processes that everything goes through. So like, say if I give you a hypothetical, so we'll say you and I are working together because you've really fallen down in your luck, and you get some offers coming in. Like, say if you get like 10 offers, do you sift through those and think like, no, that's not a good fit for him, and you're like, yo, maybe I'll show him that one, or do you just show everything and go through them as a pair, or how does it work?
We would, I mean, 10 offers would be really awesome, man, if you had 10 offers at once that were all competing. But yeah, even if it
You
was 2
haven't
offers.
seen the offers. The offers are terrible. It's just
So yeah,
it's quantity, not quality.
yeah, right. Well, whatever, either way, right? If they're quality or quantity, whatever. If there was 10, if there was 20, if there was 2, my job as a manager and as an agent is to, help the athlete make the best decision for themselves, right? At the end of the day, they're going to make the decision. I'm just going to try to protect them, so that their image and likeness and brand is protected, and it's the right partnership for them. So yeah, we would sift through all of them. There'd probably be a huge trial period where you try everything, or try each brand, whether that be maybe supplementation, as long as it's all cleared and drug free, right? We don't entertain anything that isn't certified drug free. If it was apparel, we're going to probably try all those brands, right? Or if it was a shoe company, we're going to try all the shoes and figure out which one is best for them. Because at the end of the day, if you're not passionate about what it is that you're endorsing, man, like, people are going to know you're not going to move the needle for the company, so they're going to be upset, and there's going to be no ROI for anybody, and it's a contract that's just waiting to die. So yeah, you gotta do that legwork for sure.
Yeah, and then like, say if you see me veering towards something that like maybe you think wouldn't be a good fit, like in your more experienced like expertise of it, like how hard do you push back if I'm like, oh, I really want to do this one? Like how, like where do you kind of just say, right, okay, fair enough, go for it? Like like do you push a lot, or do you just kind of say, my advice is this isn't a good idea, and then 6 months later be like, well, I told you so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I told you so is necessary at that point, right? If it doesn't work out, but I'd say, my goal with any of my clients, I try to do a really good job of it, is have a very transparent, honest, and um, you know, well-grounded relationship with each of them.
Mm,
So that we can be super honest, right? They can come to me with frustrations that they might be having that I need to resolve, or if I need something out of them or more out of them, or maybe they need to adhere to their obligations a little bit better in a timely fashion, like, I can be honest and tell them that. So if there's something that I don't think aligns with their brand, and maybe they're just looking at the short term as opposed to the long term, um, then I'll definitely, I'll voice that opinion, and they would expect me to voice that opinion, right?
yeah.
But if at the end of the day, right, like, it is their decision, right? They're all adults. They're able to make those decisions, and you know, you have to do the best by the best for the athlete. So if the best is to put my opinion out there, they reject it and go with what they do, then it is what it is. And if it doesn't work out, they'll probably listen to me a little bit more closely next time around. So
Yeah, I suppose like the flip side of it is then you've obviously built up relationships with brands as well, and like the people that you know represent the brands, or own the brands or whatever, and like their job is to expand their clients or to get new clients, and then like is it difficult to turn them down if you've worked with them in the past and you know that they're you know whatever good and wholesome and all the rest, but your client just isn't interested? Is it a hard conversation to have when you know the person well?
I mean, it's never fun telling people no, right? Even if I have athletes that are with a brand. I have athletes that have been with the brand and left for another brand, right? And you don't ever want to burn a bridge, right? So you want to be as respectful and polite as possible, but at the same time, like, I, as a business owner, right, like, as one myself, I would much rather have a hard conversation and know the honest truth than to string them along and then pull the wool over their eyes or something, right? Like, you're only saving them time and energy so that they can refocus and go back into what it is they need to do to grow their brand. So, no, I'd definitely just let them know, hey, the interest is not there, and maybe a different athlete. And for the most part, man, like, it's business. Like, people respect the fact that you're honest with them.
Yeah. And say if you have we'll keep it hypothetical. If you have me and another podcaster, and someone comes to you about me and says, "Oh, we want to work with him," and you think, this would really be a good fit for the other guy and not for him. Like, do you still come to me and say to me, oh, such and such a company came looking to work with you, but I'm going to send them to the other guy because I think it's a better match? You know, something might come down the pipeline for you, or like, do any of those conflicts of interest ever appear? Because I assume if you've got like 10 to 12 athletes all in the one space, it's bound to arise at some point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's come across. I mean, dude, to be honest, like once again, it wouldn't be fair to not include the athlete in that conversation in terms of like, hey, this company is interested in you. What do you think? They'll probably say yada yada. What do you think? And I might say, hey, yeah, I'm not sure it's necessarily the right fit for you. I could see them being more a brand for this person. And like my athletes, I try to make it a bit of like a family. Like everybody
Mm.
knows who I work with, right? So like I'll send out text to everybody at once with like advice around how to grow the platform or what I'm seeing in algorithm changes for Instagram or something, or what's happening in the open. Like this is what's going on, right? Like behind the scenes before anything else is like, maybe solidified. This is what I'm hearing. So people know, right? I mean, shoot, I have 3 athletes that live and train together in Las Vegas pretty much. And yeah, so I'm honest in that sense, but if the athlete likes it, once again, like it's not on, it's even if I think it's something different, than what they think, and I think maybe it's not for them, but they really love it, then it's like, okay, once again, athlete's decision. Okay, cool, let's make that happen. And then once that's set in stone and locked in, contract signed, maybe I'll pitch them the other person. But there's been plenty of times where I talk to a company and pitch multiple athletes, right? And try to get a few of them signed at one time, because I love when I can work with a company in a big way. That way they can come to me for like one thing, and I can touch on it with like 4 or 5 athletes in one crack, right? And then we can really move the needle for the company and make it easy for
Yeah. And then like even looking like you've just an incredible roster of athletes. Like so you mentioned at the start that it was like Josh and Camille at the start, but now you've got like, Chris, Josh, like Dallin, who's like I've had him on. He's just a great guy. And then Amanda, like Carrie, Beth, like it's just insane. And I'm barely covering half, and that's only CrossFit. Like, can you remember a point in the company's history where you kind of felt like you'd arrived? Like, was there a signing or a deal or an athlete that signed on that you just thought like, shit, like this is really big leagues? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I I think I have like watch this space, because I think I have some tricks up my sleeve that are coming that are going to be pretty good. I can't really talk about just yet, but um, there's some moments, yeah. But dude, at the end, like really, like my mindset is always just building. Like it's I don't even. Well, I feel like I have accomplished zero, and I have like very big things that I want to see happen. So, yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I think there's moments where I look around and I think, nice, dude, we're doing it. Whether that be with Josh's stuff and seeing like, you know, like, and we like run Josh's website and like his apparel and like Good Dudes, whatever. Like, but like, I'll be back there packing shirts, until late tonight, because people really love Josh. And
yeah,
like it's like sweep the sheds mentality, right? Like the All Blacks, like the rugby team, like, nobody's above anything. And so like, I'll do whatever it takes to make it float for my athletes. And there's just like times where, when we send out 200 shirts that Josh sold, it's like, yeah, like that dude moves the needle. People love Josh, it's like, it's cool. Stuff like that. Or like we did a shoot for, we did like a little video spot that we just launched yesterday on Josh's channel with
I
Yeti.
saw, yeah.
And it's just like, that's special, like such a cool brand,
Mm.
um to be able to like even have them like just like sponsor a YouTube video is like sick. It's sick, yeah, it's just cool. So yeah, there's times where I'm like, yeah, yeah, we're doing it, and then there's other times where I'm like, I can't sleep at night because I'm like, oh my god, we're not doing it, we need to do all of these things. It's just like, it's this balance where you just try to lean on the team and make it happen.
Yeah, it's funny, like it kind of resonates because I suppose like from the outside looking in, I suppose how you quantify success, like, or where you see yourself now and where you see where you want to be and stuff like that. And I think like, a lot of people I've had a lot of messages saying like, "Oh, it must be a great feeling, like you've really made it now." And I'd be the same where I'm kind of like, I haven't though. Like I've just like it's going well, but like it can go better. I can do more. Like there's other stuff that needs to happen. Like so, yeah, I admire the mindset. It's definitely something that resonates.
Yeah, I saw
Um,
on the morning chocolate they posted about like their little news article or whatever, right? I saw that, they put up that you made your 100th episode, so congrats on that, man. Like that's awesome. Like that's a
yeah,
milestone, dude. To like really A, to start, B, to like keep going, C, to actually touch something like that, which like a lot of people don't do.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I admire that. Like, shoot, dude, I did it and made like 4 episodes and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah,
micro speed, macro focus, right?
yeah, yeah. I think like later on today, someone or like after I saw that on Morning Chalk Up, someone messaged me was like, "Oh, how did you celebrate episode 100?" And like my genuine answer was, I started working on 101. Like it's just like straight away, just like right, who's next? Like,
Dude,
um,
like legit goosebumps when you say that. Not even kidding. I'm like, yes, let's go. Like, yeah, I celebrated by booking 101.
is there like I'm assuming Josh in the Super Bowl must be pretty high up there, but is there a deal that you're most proud of being involved with thus far? Obviously, you're saying that there's exciting stuff coming up, which is like, bit of a tease, but we'll let you away with it. But is there anything like that springs to mind straight away of like, God, I'm really impressed I got that one across the line?
Um, yeah, I mean the Super Bowl one was very cool. I got a huge lift, thankfully, from Daniel Robbins there from Loud and Live. So huge shout out to him. That was awesome. But yeah, I'd say like Amanda's Reebok deal is a pretty exciting one, right? Like she earned that, she
Mhm.
deserved it. Yeah, like that one was definitely special. And then hmm, there's just like some other ones, like just like getting Danielle Brandon, who is like had just bust onto the scene, and then she's just a stud. Like getting her Nike deal is sweet. And yeah, we've got that was in large part to Jason because Jay's a stud. So there's just been some team deals or deals that have just been made, right? That like definitely fire you up to keep going. And so, I'm excited. I'm excited for what's to come, and we have a few more that ideally are going to come to fruition and the next few months that'll ideally bring some bigger players into the space, and looking forward to those. So
Is
yeah.
it hard when you know something's like on the horizon, like something's on the precipice? Is it hard to wait? Because I know, like, especially like say in my experience, I've had stuff where it's like, oh, we're going to do such and such a thing. And it's like, right, okay, when are we doing that? And it's like, it'll probably be a month or 2 months. And it's like, oh my God. So I just have to sit here and wait for that. Like it must like, do you ever get impatient just waiting to can we not just announce that thing now and get it out?
100%, absolutely, always, dude. It's like my East Coast mentality is like, let's go. Like, like I want results and answers and, things to be done now. And that's where you gotta, once again, like micro speed, macro focus. Like you need to focus on the things that you can control today and, remember the long-term play. But um, yeah, there's times all the time that I'm like, I want to talk about this and like yell it from rooftops, but I can't do that. So you just don't do it. And there's also been times, man, where like I've had a contract, like, walked all the way down, like, super excited about it, like, big thing, and then boom, gone. Like, somebody higher up pulled it, and it's just like, that sucks. It's like a terrible feeling. It's tough, because the athlete was excited about it, and it's like to walk that back it's terrible. It's never fun. So, but sometimes things are just outside of your control. So I've learned through, the guidance of Jason and those that are wiser than me to just shut up until I get actual signed contracts. Things signed on the dotted line.
Yeah, I think that's my wife's job is she's my like person that I tell the stuff to that might never happen. And then like there's a this is a bit of an aside. I probably won't leave this bit in, but have you ever heard the story of fuck, what's his name? Larry O'Lunasa or something? It's some Irish king like years ago, who had donkey's ears and he had really long hair and he used to get the barbers to come and cut his hair. But then obviously they'd see that he had donkey's ears. So he'd have the barbers killed so that they wouldn't tell anyone. So this one guy was like sworn to secrecy, or he'd have his tongue cut off or something. So he went and whispered to a tree, "Oh, the king has donkey's ears," because he just needed to get it out, like. And then I think there was some like banquet or something in the King's Hall, and that particular tree had been made into a harp. And when the harp was played, it played the song that was just "The King has donkey's ears." And then everyone realized that the reason he had long hair was because he had donkey's ears. But I always remember that when I tell my wife a secret about, like, oh, I'm after texting such and such an athlete, and they say they're going to come on. And it's like, shit, what if she tells someone now? Because I kind of told her, like this like thing. I always remember that story, and I don't know why. I'd say the last time I heard that story, I'd say I was about 7, and it just popped into my head about 3 days ago. I was telling my wife about a guest that's coming up, and then it just popped into my head, and I was like, "Have you ever heard the story of Larry whatever?" And she was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" She's like, "You haven't, like, is this an episode? Like, what's going on?" So yeah, I'll probably just edit that bit out. I was curious as well. You've obviously got like you mentioned monster truck driving. You've got like weightlifters, like baseball. There's a whole host of different sports. Is there major differences in the athlete management of say CrossFit athletes versus other sports? Like, is there a different approach you have to take?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, right, their followings are a lot more centralized, right? Because they're usually, whatever market the team is in. So it's like, I got a guy just started working with Josh Hader, right? He pitches for the Milwaukee Brewers. He's like arguably the best closer in baseball. Um, and yeah, so his following is going to be majority Milwaukee people, right? Obviously, there's social media's got global reach, so there's going to be other people, but he's from Baltimore. He lives in Arizona most of the time, but he's probably got a majority Milwaukee following. So with that, you can go after brands that he enjoys that have a Milwaukee setting or a presence, right? Things like that. So you can do more localized things. Um, Whereas a lot of CrossFit deals, like people are looking for all over the US or international things because it doesn't matter. CrossFit's reach is so insane, right? And the followings of these athletes are so big. And yeah, so it definitely gets a little bit different. The other thing is, like, some of these traditional sport athletes, if they're really one of the best in their craft, right? Like, so if they were equivalent to a Carey Pierce, right, in baseball, like, dude, they're signing on $100 million contract. Like, so the deals that come from social media aren't even close to that money. Like, it
Mm.
just isn't, unless you're like Kylie Jenner or something, right? Who gets like $1 million a post. But yeah, so it's not even the same ballpark. But that being said, like, you shouldn't not capitalize on your platform while you're in the limelight, um, because you could build something great, right? So that, like what we're doing with Josh, right? So that when Josh decides, you know what, I'm done, like, he can move into something else, right? But a lot of these traditional athletes, right, even if they make, $100 million over their career, a lot of them are like, dude, they're competitors, right? Like, they love to do something. And so when you go from having like your day outlined every single day and know exactly what you're going to do to excel and be the best, and then go into something or just retire and have nothing to fall into, like, that's a dangerous thing.
Mm.
So that's why you should, be working with somebody in the marketing space who can help you align your brand so that you have something to go and do post career as well. So
And you mentioned earlier on that say agency or management in CrossFit is like, CrossFit itself is relatively new, and then agent and management is new as well for CrossFit. Do you think that because it's new, like you mentioned earlier on as well, that Loud and Live helped you with getting Josh in the ad and stuff like that? Like, do you think that there's more like camaraderie, or more like are CrossFit agents and managers more willing to help each other out than in other sports, do you think?
absolutely, yes. And I'm not saying that just to be like PC. Like, I know how gnarly some agents are in the traditional space. Like, won't even let you talk to their athlete, and it's like, man, I'm not even certified to represent your athlete in baseball. I'm just talking about their off field things, like things that you don't do and I can do, but like, I can't do what you do, right? Like, literally, legally, I can't do it. So unless I went and got my, you know, baseball certification, which I don't see a need, so I'm not going to. But yeah, so in terms of CrossFit, yeah, absolutely more camaraderie. Like, I would say like there was probably like a little bit more competition, but I think and there still is, right? There always is, because we're all looking to do the best we can for our athletes, and that's just kind of how the cookie crumbles in that sense. But no, like Daniel's done a good job of being a homie and trying to connect me when he's working with a brand. And they're like, hey, who represents that athlete? And instead of them just kind of doing a little bit of legwork to find out it's me, he's like, hey, it's Cooper. And like I came to him recently with something that to try to help him out. And then like Snorri, who you've had on, like absolute stud. Snorri's connected me with brands. I've connected Snorri with brands. We've discussed athletes where like I almost possibly was going to work with one of his athletes just because like geographically it was a better fit, stuff like that. So yeah, we really try to, even just through quarantine, man, like, and with all the stuff that happened with HQ, and we didn't know where the sport was going, we actually kind of like banded together there more, and it upped the level of camaraderie, which was pretty cool. And it felt like, just as a cohesive unit, it was a good thing, because I mean, dude, there are agents in the space that like don't know what they're doing. And it's one of those things where it's like you just like randomly hear like so and so is represented by who, like what, and it's like that type of stuff where it's like they're so new or so naive to like the process, or haven't really learned how things work, that it can make the rest of our jobs harder. Um, and so by having like more communication between all of us, it makes it so that there's less room for, there's less error going
Mm.
on out there, which makes all of our jobs easier. So it's been awesome. Like, even like, shoot, I've never even met the dude in person, James Seeley, from like over in the UK. Like, he's got a more traditional like entertainment background in management, like bands, and I think like even whatever, like different sports, but dude's brilliant. And so I know he works with like the Buttery Bros, right? And like Zach George, he's doing incredible things with his brand. And so like I've literally just talked to him on the phone like twice, and the dude's like come to me like, "Yo, I got a UK brand who's trying to tap the US market, and they're interested in your athletes. Here's the contact. I'll make the intro." And it's like stuff like that where it's just like, yes, you're like, "Yep, appreciate you. I'm gonna bring one back." Like, it makes me like hungry to like return the favor. So yeah, it's really quite great. And yeah, it's much better than other sports for sure.
Yeah, I think as well, it's probably because like most people anyway that are involved in the sport have participated in the sport, or have been to a gym, or they've been part of a community. So there is that kind of like, I guess, familial feel to CrossFit as a sport and as a form of exercise. I guess that you got this like community that builds up. So I suppose you kind of cling on to that a little bit even when you move up into a different realm of it, I suppose. Is there someone that you'd love to work with then, like a brand or an athlete that, you know, maybe further down the line you could think like, man, if we got that person, or if we got that brand to work with such and such a person? Or is it, in your line of work, is it a case of like, literally cannot name anyone there because I'm going to piss off a brand, or I'm going to like break some kind of code of silence of something that might happen?
I mean, I don't think there's like anybody in the CrossFit space that like I'm like, man, I really wish I could work with them, because I'm just like so stoked on my roster.
Yeah.
And they've become, like family. Uh,
Do you have a cutoff for like, I couldn't take on anyone else?
no, I mean, so I did for like a hot second. I was feeling like I just was doing a disservice to my athletes. Like, I wasn't able to, not that I was, but I would be doing one if I kept bringing people in, because I felt
Yeah.
like nearing my limit. And so then I brought in someone who I trusted and thought would be a really kind of good fit for the team. Her name's Deb Graff, and so she's over in Long Island. She works like hand in hand with Christian Harris, like helps run his brand, run his gym, keep CH, going, because he's the man. But he's got a lot of different things cooking. So
Yeah, he's really busy, especially the last like month. He's just blown up big, like,
unreal, unreal. So yeah, Deb's been crushing it. She helps me with, she works really closely with Christian and Meg Reardon, and has done some stuff with like Steph Chung and some of the other athletes that are over on the East Coast side of things that she's been really helpful with. So yeah, I mean, no, we are always down for growth, and I'm always looking for people to add to the team to help the athletes experience just be that much better. But and to get back to your question in terms of athletes I'd like to work with, like obviously it'd be fun to, have an athlete that wins the games multiple times in a row. And, I believe that Dallin Pepper may be that person.
Mm.
Or one of my best friends, if he keeps going the way he's going, he's a stud. His name's Jake Marconi. Jake's an absolute animal, and he's back in the saddle. And so, you know, those are like the people that I focus on. Like, yeah, that's where I want to put my energy, is like helping grow them to astronomical heights. And they're doing their work, I'm doing my work. That's what I'm stoked on. In terms of companies I want to work with, like just having a taste of who Yeti is as a brand, it'd be so sick to do something like bigger with them. Um, there's obviously like companies that are just wildly awesome, like Red Bull. Like, Jason brought Camille the Red Bull deal, and that was a long time coming. It was a lot of work to get that done. And she's the only CrossFit athlete that they've ever signed. And so, I'd love to see the way that the sport's going, and that it's like, I think it's going to be on its way up again. I'd love to lock something in there and do something with them, just because of just the access that they have, and the media that the power they can put behind people would just be, really fun to sink your teeth into, so
Yeah.
that'd be cool.
Yeah, well, if you ever want to branch into like podcast brands, let me know, and I'll consider it. I'll at least consider. I'll hear your pitch. I was doing a deep dive of your Instagram earlier on, and like you've been doing CrossFit like a long time.
Yeah, a decent amount of time, yeah, man. Like my buddy, one of my best friends, this guy Chris Lawless. This guy's sweet last name, Lawless. There's a CrossFit Lawless in Florida, actually.
There's an
Um,
Irish CrossFitter called Ty Lawless. That's pretty. And then PD Savage. They're two strong names.
that's so sweet. Great lacrosse names too. Just saying. But no, so Chris, the one who introduced me to CrossFit, dude, back in like, you know, probably 2008 or nine, man. Like 2 or 3 years before I started doing, maybe even like 4 years before I started doing it, which really, honestly, is like one of my regrets, because I'm like, man, I could have been better at this a lot earlier. Like if I had started 4 years earlier, but I just didn't have the wherewithal to do it, right? And so
Mm.
he was doing it to train for. He was at a ski school in the East Coast, and his head coach was the owner of like CrossFit Wachusett at this time. This guy like Matt Prendergrast, and he was a regional athlete, and so Chris was doing CrossFit. I remember my first workout was 4 rounds of an 800-meter run and 50 sit-ups, and I like nearly threw up. And it's like, I would love something like that now. And because I like running, I played soccer and everything, but I just like was never in that good of shape. Always kind of hated training. But we used to train at this gym we called Rockies, which was in Chris's dad owns one of the biggest steel manufacturing companies in the country, actually. And they had this disgusting gym filled with, steel filings and one pane glass that was cracked looking out over railroad tracks. Like, and so we called it Rockies because it's like a scene out of Rocky Balboa.
I was going to say, you surely have some montages from.
Dude, I mean, honestly, it was like before iPhones were super legit. So we don't, but like, I always thought like Noble, like that, would be such a perfect brand to shoot something there. Like
Yeah.
they'd be able to just make the sickest content out of that. But yeah, Chris introduced it to me, and then I didn't really get involved until like 2013. Yeah, Pioneer Valley CrossFit, right near UMass Amherst. And it's funny to look back on, man, like snatching 75 pounds and having that feel like the weight of the world. And then it's like, now you just do like Randy with it. It's like a normal thing. It's just crazy the progressions that you make like in the sport.
Yeah. But even like, I'm sure if you went back to 2013, 2014 and said, like, one day you're going to sign a deal with Yeti for Josh Bridges, like,
Yeah, I mean, dude, yeah, it's weird. It's weird how life takes you to places, man. That's why it's like, yo, if you're in a sticky situation or a weird spot, or maybe things aren't going your way, just like keep moving.
yeah. I wonder, is your old friend Lawless like looking at you like, signing deals with these athletes being like, motherfucker,
No, dude, we actually just went to him and I and one of our other buddies, who's like he's from New England, but he's in the army now, and just a savage. We all went to Silverton, Colorado, and went heli skiing. So
Wow.
that's pretty sweet. Now Chris is crushing it himself, and he he's at an awesome gym, CrossFit Harpoon in Maine. So he loves it. It's like it's pretty cool though, man. Like, yeah, Chris is. I mean, I'll dust him now. Don't get me wrong. I'll turn the screws on Chris, but he still loves to train and he loves to buy all the gear. And we make fun of him because he's the biggest consumer ever, like CrossFitter to the T. Like everything that Make WODs Great Again puts out about buying new things is Chris.
Yeah.
Like, he's got wraps for like things I didn't even know wraps, dude, just to be able to buy them. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd say what would probably hurt him most is if you're like standing in his presence, pretending to be on the phone. It's like, oh, it's Josh again, and like hanging up. That'd probably really cut him.
I mean, I've done it. I mean, it's happened a few times, right? Oh my God, Josh is calling me. He'll be like, "What the hell?" Okay, and then, But yeah, I also think, man, like it's funny. People love Josh. Like it's unreal. Like, and it's deserved, right? Like he's a badass, and he's inspired a lot of people. But I think sometimes people forget that Josh is just like human,
Mm.
and you just talk to the dude, and he's just a genuinely really good dude. Like he's so easy to just be with and hang out with, man. Like it's just fun. It's like all my athletes are that way though, man. Like they all put their pants on like one leg at a time, just like the rest of us. They're just really fit, and they've gotten a platform because of that, and they all utilize it for good, which is really incredible. And that's like a big thing, right? Like I only work with good people, like people that I genuinely like, and I think are just the right fit. And yeah, they're all so fun to be around. It's like I think people sometimes forget about that a little bit. Like, yo, man, they have their struggles. They're working through things just like you. They got bills to pay. Like, you know, that's the whole thing that was cool about Yeti. Like Josh is a dad, dude, and that's what he prides himself the most. So
Yeah.
like that thing was about Josh being a dad, not about Josh the SEAL, Josh the CrossFit Games guy, Josh the business owner, right? Like this is the thing that makes him the most happy.
Yeah, I think as well the thing with like a lot of them, but especially Josh, I think is because like he's so human at times. Like he's so like guy standing in your kitchen having a chat. Like I'm thinking back of I can't remember what year it was, but he was in one of the documentaries making a coffee. He brought a Chemex or something with him to the games, and he was like doing a pour over, and he was just talking, but talking so like naturally and fluidly to the camera that he just seemed so likable and so affable. But then you also see the other like human side of like the explosions of emotion and the rage when he's getting pissed off with deadlifts, or the joy when he's like screaming running across the line. Like you get those like unfakeable moments kind of.
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean, dude, one of my favorite moments is when Josh, like just the lead up of that, right? Like I don't know who created it, but the lead up to Josh snatching 265 in that regional snatch ladder, like I tell him that all the time. Like I think that is the like people love the Murph scream, right? And that's got an incredible story in itself. But when he snatched 265 for those two reps at the end of that ladder in regionals, right? Like that was a PR hitting it the first time, right? And then he hit it the second time to actually clear the ladder. I think he took like eighth place in that workout. Like, and Josh didn't have any business taking top 10 in that workout, right? Like, if you don't have the prerequisite snatch, you shouldn't be clearing that ladder,
Mm.
right? Like, dudes who snatched 285 didn't clear that ladder. And I just remember there was like a YouTube video leading up to it, and he wasn't like hitting 245 that day or something, whatever. And the person in the video is like, "What are you gonna do like when it comes to the day up?" And he was like, "I'm gonna figure out how to snatch the bar twice." Like there's no like, it was like this is what it is.
Yeah.
And he went out there and dude, like I just like I feel like just so intense and like like the adrenaline rush is like when he hits that once and then he like misses and you hear him like let out that roar of emotion and then he hits it again, and that's actually where the face came from for the Super Bowl ad, right? And he just hits it and finishes up and you're just like, yeah, that's why this dude is a savage, like nuts.
Yeah. Well, listen, we could talk about Josh all day. We'll finish with a quick fire.
Yep.
So snatch or clean?
Snatch. I'm better at cleaning, but snatch is more fun.
Rings or bar?
Rings, because you can do strict muscle ups too.
Squat or bench?
Bench all day, show muscles.
Uh, Gymnastics or cardio?
Cardio.
Bike or row?
Bike.
100 calorie assault bike or 100 thrusters for time?
100 calorie assault bike.
Yeah, it's funny all the men say that.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it would suck, but man, I hate thrusters, man. Those things are devious.
Yeah. I just know no matter how slow I go on 100 calories assault bike, it still would not be as slow as 100 thrusters for time.
Right. It's just like, depending, like, give me a weight though. It's like, if it's a barbell, like 45 pounds, yeah, give me the 100 of those. But you give me 95 pounds, I'm like, God, this is.
And favorite lab athlete? No, I'm joking. You don't have to. Listen, thanks a million for coming on. I really appreciate it. I think, from what little I've seen of you, and then the majority that I've seen of your athletes, you are doing great work together. And it's, you're building an incredibly likable and positive team in there. With all the athletes. So yeah, keep going, and I look forward to seeing what all these like spicy deals are that are coming up as well.
Right. Hey, I look forward to hopefully signing them. So, man, appreciate it, dude. This was really fun, and congrats on the 100 episode milestone. But we can celebrate when you hit 200. So,
Yeah. Cheers, man.
later, brother.
Thanks very much.